Hi, my name is Rhiannon Clay, and this is my participating video. The video that I'll be doing will be on reviewing the campus improvement plan and the campus professional development plan. The leadership members that have access to our campus improvement plan are all of the admin team, our at-risk team, and then also members of our site-based committee. My principal is very open about this, so if any teachers want access to it, she also lets us know that we can talk to her about that, and she'll kind of talk us through the campus improvement plan. So what I'm supposed to do specifically for my video is look at the campus improvement and professional development plan, see how time is allocated to the activities, if it's a single event or ongoing, and then also talk about resources as far as the funding, personnel, and even infrastructure that's available. I have to present these findings to our leadership team and then also give recommendations for further development. So, my rationale for choosing this option, when I went through the practicum plan with my principal, she specifically said that she'd like me to do this one. She said a lot of teachers don't understand the amount of work that goes into the campus improvement plan and the why of why we're doing certain things throughout the school. So, she asked if I go through that one and kind of get my point of view on it. So, when I present my findings and recommendations, I'm going to do this in one of the admin meetings. I have a PowerPoint presentation set up where I'll go through the different sections of the campus improvement plan, also highlight the fact that it includes last year's evaluation and also our campus needs assessment and includes our professional development plan also. Um, I'm going to highlight some weaknesses, highlight some of our strengths, talk about the things that they say we need to address this year. I'm also going to have a printed copy of the campus improvement plan, and then I'll have some of the articles that I'm going to talk about with my recommendation for staff development in it. So, in my analysis, what I found out is that most of our events are ongoing, most of the strategies and activities that we're doing. Um, and they say that they'll be evaluated, ongoing or after our district and campus checkpoints. Some of them are specific to after our EOC results come out, but they're still going to be evaluated on an ongoing basis so that we can see if it's working or if anything needs to be modified along the way. Um, the funding, we are a Title I school, so we have Title I money. A lot of it came from that, also local funds. We have certain programs that are funded by SCE funds. And then we also had mentions to Title II money, Title IV, and also IDEA from our SPED kids. So there were a lot of funding sources at my school to help with the strategies and activities that we want to do to help improve our campus. Um, so the other allocations that they gave on there, they gave us time allocations. They gave us the people that will work on the campus improvement plan, who was responsible for the follow up. The head principal name is mentioned in every single objective. There's at least one of the strategies that she's responsible for. And then we see a lot of our dean of instruction when it comes to things that are talking about reading and writing. That's our main focus this year, is to increase reading and writing scores on the campus. We also have support staff like our at-risk team, the librarians, also people that are doing special programs like our ACT classes, and we also have um, a staff person that does specifically college readiness, and she works closely with our juniors and seniors on applications, on registering and taking the SAT and ACT, on tutoring for them and things like that. So we do have them mentioned in the plan. So based on my review of the campus improvement plan, I'm going to suggest professional development for co-teach teachers. It's a new model for us last year. This year, I'm actually a special education teacher and I'm co-teaching. So it's new for me. And we had several new staff come in, either due to turnover or just changing who was co-teaching with whom. So we did not get any kind of professional development this year. They did last year because it was brand new as a district, but then nothing was offered this year. So a lot of people are just kind of learning as they go. I want to do something on the campus level. Um, so I looked online, I did some research. ASCD had a journal that they just put out all about co-teach. So I used a lot of research from there to base my professional development on. I'm going to talk about planning at the beginning of the year and how we can make the year smoother, and then also about the different co-teach models that can be used. I'll also talk about some things with the research that, to me, I wasn't sure, just because of us trying some of the strategies would actually work in within our infrastructure. I'll talk about a few things like that, but just kind of talk to them about how we need to specialize on co-teach. If we help our special education students out, we're also going to help with our index 3 scores, and then hopefully that will trickle into our index 1, 2, and 4 also. Thanks. So that's kind of, we had different people doing different things. There were 34 credits by Thanksgiving and then 62 by the end of the semester. And then the year prior, when I was in there the whole year, we had 52 by Thanksgiving and then 92 by the end of the semester. So what I saw, it's almost 50%. We almost double from Thanksgiving to Christmas, which you expect because they have a little bit more time to get done. So hopefully, I'm going to say that's an area we might want to address. I did go and talk to both of them last week to ask them what they needed help with, what wasn't working for them, what were they doing, what kind of accountability do the students have. So I heard that some of it is the co-teach relationship between the two of them is not exactly the way that they want it to be, just cohesive as far as the expectations. And then that trickles down to the students that if I ask this person, I can do this. If I ask this person, I can't. And that always happens in co-teach classes. They try to pick favorites. They try to do all these things. So I made some recommendations to them just about writing your expectations down. And at the beginning of this coming up semester, because they're going to get new kids along with their old kids, making sure that those are communicated really well and that both of them have to adhere to it. I also gave him some tactics as far as when they aren't on schedule. It shouldn't just be a talk with them. It should be you have mandatory tutoring and you have to come, and if you don't come, then we're going to do that. So I told him parent contact, also talking to the counselors to talk to these kids, because it's all about credits in there. It's about getting them to graduation, and then after that using discipline. So he's kind of, follow a path, but make sure that you're they know I have to get this done. It's not just a place where we can come and do what we want to do. And even for the rules and all those things, just make sure it's plain, it's visible, and you follow them. So that's what I talked to them about, and I pulled them both together and told them, if you guys aren't agreeing on something, it's fine, because it happens. It happens in marriages and co-teach relationships, all that stuff. You've got to get past it that day and move on. But all it's about is the student success. So I know that's one area where, you don't know until you get them in there. And that's kind of part of the problem when it comes to any classrooms where you have more than one teacher in the classroom. So, okay. Campus goals are on page 13. These goals, I know Alicia has communicated really well with the staff, those three. So we have phase 2, level 2. I looked around because Alicia had mentioned this in our common planning, just about what the score is going to be, especially for algebra and things like that. So I went to Lead Forward. Let me make it bigger. And I found this. And they put this up after the state changed and said instead of having the graduated level, they're going to have the linear growth model. So I found this, and it has the standard progression over there in the blue, what they're saying they think the score will be for 2015, 2016. And for Algebra 1, can't see it from the yeah, it shows 41. And what I noticed, for English 1 and English 2, it's really close. So 57, 59, phase 2, level 2 was going to be 58, 60. So it's just like one tick below. But for algebra, it was a little bit bigger. It shows 41 to 44. But if they do every year keep going on that linear model, then we might end up above the 44 like we wouldn't have when we graduated. So I found that. They said it's just an estimate right now. They can't be sure, but this is their closest guess to where it would be. And this is only for STAR. They said that it doesn't work for STAR A because sometimes the cut points are a little bit different just for that part. Okay. So we have the 3 goals, basic level 2, and then also rigorous and engaging lessons. We do this in every professional development. It's ongoing in almost everything that we do. And then also AP exams, it was the number of students getting successful scores increasing by 10%. So she has said that beginning of the year. Now in the middle of the year, we've heard it a few times. It's been said plenty. Okay. Oh, yes. All right. So what am I supposed to be doing again? This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Reviewing the campus improvement plan and talking about how time is allocated. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, this was the first objective. And okay. It was reinforcing reading and writing standards across the curriculum. So the resources for it are local and Title I. That's talking about the funding. And then as far as people, we have Karen, the librarians, and Alicia are the people responsible for the different strategies. Measure is improved scores on EOC and then local assessment scores in the ELA. So we just know everything's going to be tying back to reading and writing. Almost all of them were mostly ongoing throughout the year. There was just one that had a December review. So I went ahead and brought those up since we're in December now, just as kind of we need to pay attention to those. And it was provide writing support to core and non-core teachers through research-based best practices. And Karen, I think your name might have been on that one. We'll see. But it's just a checkup of what we should be doing in December for that one. Okay. Yeah. And then our next one was increasing rigor, student engagement, and teacher accountability. So we referenced it in one of our main goals, the rigor and student engagement. The resources were all local for this one. And then our measure, it had increased walkthroughs, increased use of talk, read, talk, write, instructional strategies and process standards, and then increased student engagement and depth of knowledge. So the people on this one was mostly Karen and Alicia. A lot of the things, like Alicia's responsible for administrators getting 25 weekly walkthroughs. We've talked a bit about this. She talked about it in our last staff development, how we're still really trying, but you guys are going to try to be in more freshman classes, doing all that stuff just to be seen so they know the importance of them being in class. And then Karen, you have more of the instructional things. All right. The next one is targeted support for special education and ELL. So resources on this were very different for each different one, and we'd expect to see that because special ed goes across the curriculum and ELL. So our measures were IEP goals, increased EOC results, and then also our local assessments. The people also varied on this, so we have varied funding, but we also have different people over the different subsections for this depending on what it was. So Melissa has a part in it, which is about scheduling, making sure that our kids are in the right classes, and we know at the beginning of the school year, like, you had to do a whole bunch of changing after we found out, you know, the lists weren't exactly right. So it really encompasses all the way from scheduling to what classes they're in, how they're getting their instruction, and then the follow-through afterwards after we see their scores. Almost all of it was mostly ongoing throughout the year. And then the two things that showed December were pullouts to target Index 3 fragile students, and then the newcomer program to target ELL learners. So, Keela, you have the newcomers part, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the librarians have the part about pullouts to target Index 3 fragile students who have significant gaps in reading. So I had a question, do the librarians do pullouts?
They make suggestions to those, yes, to work with those students.
Okay, that was my one question on that one, because I saw their names and I was like, oh, I didn't know that they did pullouts. Okay, so they make suggestions.
In terms of reading strategies to try to get them more engaged, because that's generally who those kids are. They're low-level readers who aren't very interested in reading.
The next one is promote advanced academics and college and career readiness for all students. The funding for it was all local in Title I, and mostly that was Angela Dorman, and we also had Miss Meek for the ACT and SAT class, and then Alicia has a part in that one also. The measure will be AP scores, dual credit, also senior surveys. The senior surveys were more about, do we have some type of center that they can go to get information. Student achievement, Wicker. So I know that we use that with Avid big time, but I think that as a school, we don't really know what's going on. So I saw a poster outside the other day and I was like, oh, that's it. But I haven't really, I know I haven't used it, and none of us are really talking about using it either. So maybe that's just something that as a school we might need to go back and look at a little bit more. And then also increase SAT and ACT scores. Once again, ongoing throughout the year. And then the December review is for the Princeton review class, since they'll take their tests. So we'll look at that. And they do ACT this semester and SAT?
We do ACT all year.
Okay.
Mainly because it was too much money to train Jennifer in both subjects through Princeton Review.
Okay.
So she's only trained for ACT, so that's all she can do this year.
Okay. And then the last one that was in there was use district and state assessment to adjust instruction and improve student achievement. So we had local money, Title I, and also SCE funds. The measure for this one was improved scores on EOC and local assessment scores, and then we also had Index 2 scores and Index 3 scores. This one was a lot of how we do our checkpoints and our district checkpoints, having the meetings afterwards. In common planning, we do a lot of this stuff, so it's really, it might say Alicia's responsible, but it's every AP, with whatever subjects they have if they're a tested subject. And then there's also required strategies. I didn't put those on there, but the required strategies are in the back, and they cover a wide array of things, from crisis management plan to having a plan for homeless students. It covers a wide variety of things. All right. And just overall, you'll notice evaluation on almost all of them said ongoing. I did ask the question to some of you guys. I was like, well, it's ongoing, so where is the list, or where is whatever? How do we know if whatever's going on? But it's really more, a lot of these I noticed, it's about improved scores on EOC. So a lot of it you just have to wait until we get scores. But when you mention local assessments, I know that we're having meetings after checkpoints. We're doing those kind of things. So I also was supposed to do a recommendation for professional development. So my recommendation is going to be provide targeted development opportunities for co-teach professionals. Why did I pick that one? Okay, so why co-teach? Because they have the most contact with special education students. And then also for Index 3, we know that we're looking at the bottom two subpopulations. Well, what happens is you can increase your Index 1 score, but still bomb on Index 3. But if you improve your Index 3, it's also going to impact Index 1, Index 2, and hopefully Index 4. So I thought that was a good deal. Also, it's what I do. So if I'm going to do professional development, I want to learn something for myself. I'm just going to be honest. And then these were all the different areas that it was addressed in the CIP. So we had it in 2014, 2015. In the comprehensive needs assessment, Alicia covered it also. We already have the objective for it. And then also in the SEE strategy, we mentioned special education students. So they're mentioned a lot along with our ELLs. Okay, I'll show you guys this first. So Alicia had mentioned this magazine, or ASCD, to me, getting a subscription. So I got a subscription, and then the first magazine I got was about co-teaching, and I was like, how amazing is that? So mine got, you just knew it was coming. So I got it, but of course it was during all that rain, and the mailman didn't quite get it in the mailbox, so mine got really wet. But it's okay, because they have digital editions. I'm going to give you guys a copy of these. And it is the Administrator's Guide to co-teaching. So what was good for me is that not only do they have teacher views in the magazine, in the Educational Leadership magazine, they also do things for administrators. One thing I have to constantly think about while I'm doing the internship is stop thinking as a teacher, think like you would as an administrator, because it's completely different. So I liked this. It's actually 5 different steps that you take to effective co-teaching, and this was all under step 1. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these. So it said, don't assume key stakeholders know what co-teaching is. So it talks about administrators, teachers, staff, students, parents. We can't assume that they know what co-teaching is. Even for myself, I came into co-teaching, and all I knew was that it meant there's going to be 2 teachers in the class, and I'm supposed to help special ed students, you know? And that was it. And then I kind of thought, well, we should be seamless. Like, they should know who the special ed teacher is and who the gen ed teacher is. And then we kind of started working our model, and like, okay, this just isn't always the way that I thought it would be, you know? So we can't assume that, especially, I know this year we had several new pairings or just brand new teachers into it. So I know they did training last year as a district. Didn't they go and do a meeting, or it might have been the year before, I'm not sure. But I know they went and did a meeting, and Miss Vaughn showed me a book of like some different things, and I was like, oh, this is good stuff to know, especially for someone who knows nothing about it. But each year you're going to have new pairings, you're going to have new teachers to SPED, so it's really important that we get that every year. Okay, it said provide clear examples of what it looks like. This for me was a little hard. Even I read it in the article, but I'm like, clear examples. And I'll go through more of this later because we change a lot on what we do. And what's good for my classroom might not be good for the co-teach biology classroom, or it might not work very well in a U.S. history classroom. So when they say provide clear examples, I think that's a little bit more difficult to give teachers. And let's just be honest, like if you tell a teacher you have to do it this way, then usually they say no, you know? Like they're not telling me what I'm gonna do, you know? It's more like, here are some good practices, which practice are you going to use? Okay, don't make it a special education thing. This was also something for me that was new from reading some of the articles. So in our school, we use co-teach mostly as inclusion model for special education. But they also mention all different types of co-teaching. They talk about, they have high school teachers that teach English and history in the same classroom, and they co-teach those classrooms. They talk about student teachers because they're co-teachers. They talk about having assistants in classrooms. So even like Apex, I didn't think of it as a co-teach, but that's really what it is. It's a co-teach relationship. You've got 2 people in the room who have to work together, have shared expectations, and all that kind of stuff. Create a collaborative school culture. So they also mentioned like getting co-teachers together outside of like this is about instruction. So even if it's like they all ate lunch together, or it's about having a culture of like doing things. The PLC that we had where we got to go into each other's classrooms, that's definitely a way of having that collaborative culture. And I loved it because you get to go into someone else's room. Like a lot of people still chose their subject. I went completely away from my subject. I went to fashion design because I wanted to see what they do. And I'd done walkthroughs with Keela in CTE classes. We went to cosmetology, we went to ROTC, we went to all these classes, and it was so hard for me to fill out a walkthrough. And because I'm just used to cut and dry, you know, in math, like it's very easy in math. And I was like, okay, I want to go spend some time on one of those. And the biggest thing I got from it is she allows kids to make mistakes. And what happens is she's not always the one correcting it. Sometimes it's them, sometimes it's the people beside them. Oh no, you've got to do the stitch this way. It was her advanced class. They were working on these great shirts that I would wear right now. They were tailored button-up shirts, you know. So we went through that, and that's a big thing I do. I'm always like, oh no, don't do that. No. So now I've tried to like let them get through the whole entire problem, and then say there's something wrong. Can you figure it out? You know. So that's something I learned not in a math class, but in the fashion design class, yeah. So I think we're really trying to do that. use outside experts if needed. So this is where when you have teachers that they don't want to hear anything from anyone in the building. So if you tell them, no, you can't do this, and they're just like, whatever, I'm going to keep going, and no, you can't do that. So they're saying use outside experts if you have those people who are like, I need someone from the outside to come in and tell me this, and then I'll believe them. So that's why I added if needed. I mean, when it comes to funding and all those things, like having to go outside, it's just not always feasible. But it's more about rallying those teachers and letting them know, we're not lying to you. We're telling you the truth the first time we said it, and maybe the second and third time also. Provide professional development to specific groups for specific purposes. So for me, I was talking about the co-teach groups. And we don't have to cover everything in co-teach in one professional development, even though there is so much. And I'm like, I read one magazine and my mind was blown about all these different things that I could be doing, So it's not about doing everything, but maybe being very specific. Like we're going to talk about how you can do this type of thing in your classroom no matter what the curriculum is. And I'll go a little more into that too. Make sure SPED teachers know how to give specialized instruction and can articulate their areas of expertise. So, this is kind of the one I was looking at. I thought my co-teacher and I should just be looked at as teachers. They wouldn't know the difference between gen ed and special ed. But the deal is that there is something different. And that's what we really need to play off of. We need to play off of our strengths. So, like Ms. Vaughn, she is a great teacher when it comes to explaining things, like getting the big picture of everything. But where I need to come in is, hey, so you got the big picture, but these are the steps that we really need to take every single time. So sometimes the kids are like, we've been doing this over and over, but they never realized that we were doing the same steps over and over. So maybe we should write these steps down. Maybe we should do this with it. So now that they notice, every time I go from standard form to y equals, it's just 2 steps. I move this one over, change the sign, and divide, And those are the things where we have to play off of each other's strengths. There's an article, and I did bring that article, where it talks a lot more about that. But the thing is, the special ed teacher has to know how to give that specialized instruction, and then they also have to be comfortable articulating it. So I have issues. I don't like interrupting, So when she's talking, even though I'm like, I have this big idea in my head, like, ooh, I can make this a little bit better. I always wait till she gets done, and it's almost like I'm like, hey, I have something to say real quick, and then we get it. But what happens is, after we do it after the first class, then she'll literally get done, and then she's looking at me like, oh, you're going to say it for this class, So then we kind of get in tune with each other. But when I'm the one leading the teaching, Ellen has no problem, being, and what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? So she's been in co-teaching for more than 1 year. She's a little more comfortable with me with it, and just the culture I'm in. It's like, well, if someone's speaking, I'm just going to wait until they're done, and then hope that I get back. You remember 2 minutes ago when she said this, so that's something that I have to work on. Ensure all teachers are familiar with common co-instructional approaches. So there are 6 approaches that they talk about. These are the 6 approaches. So what you'll notice more is the one teach, one assist. That's what I've noticed in most classes. So generally, it's the gen ed teacher is teaching, and then I, or the special ed teacher, is out with their kiddos, and they're answering questions, they're getting them back on task, they're clarifying something for a student. Every once in a while, you'll see the one teach, one observe. And what I'm going to tell you is that these 2 models are the easiest. They don't take too much planning at all. You can come into the classroom and just, be there.
And I would say they're easy for the SPED teacher, not the gen ed teacher.
They're easy, yeah, well, I can agree and disagree. Because some gen ed teachers don't want to let go of their stuff. So they would prefer to plan alone. They would prefer for you to just come in and say, what are we doing today?
To do what they've always done.
Yeah, to do what they've always done. And in high school, you teach in silos. It's your classroom. These are your kids. It's your rules. And then when you add another person in, it's like, well, you're here, but you're still, you do your thing, and I'm still going to keep over here with my thing. But yeah, it is much, much easier as a team when this person just says, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to be over here just helping out as I go along. And then we have these four, which are a little bit different. So we've got teaming. Teaming is what we try to do, and that's when we thought we had a really good class. When both of us were like, I'm doing this thing and I'm talking about it, and then she comes in and she starts talking about it, and we go through the lesson a little bit more, or she's doing all of the introduction, I'm doing all the application, we're just switching spots. And that's when we really felt like we had a good day with our co-teaching, you know, high-fiving each other, yay. So that's one option, but then when I read about these three, I was like, well, oh, okay, maybe we can do some more of this. So with the last three options, you actually cut the size down for the student-to-teacher ratio, because these three, it's still one person talking and all your students out there listening or in the classroom doing the activity. With these, you're going to change them. So station teaching, we tried this one week before Thanksgiving. So we did a mini lesson with everybody, and then Ms. Vaughn took some students and they finished out the notes. They did more application problems, more examples. I took a group outside, we did a walkabout where they had to do like a little maze and figure out what went with what. And then we switched. So it worked kind of well, but the notes took way longer than my activity took. And then it was like, okay, well, let's cut the notes short, but then when are we going to get back to those? And then we had the issue where, okay, so we tried to change that. We got a worksheet and said, well, when they finish my activity, now we're going to work on a worksheet. Well, getting kids to sit on the floor and work on a worksheet in the hall does not work very well for our high schoolers, we found out. So we moved them to tables on the end of the hall because we have some set up over there. It worked for our smaller classes, but not for our bigger classes. And it's like, okay. So then we tried this again, where I was teaching a lesson, she was doing a worksheet all in the same room. Well, the people doing the lesson were like, I can't hear you, you know, I'm yelling, but it's because we're trying to keep them quiet all at the same time and we're all in the same classroom. What I noticed a lot of examples in here, they have the big classroom with the divider wall that just moves back and forth, and that's how they're doing a lot of these things. So it's kind of like, okay. So we have tried, and we're going to continue to try. It's just we notice that some things just don't work as well, depending on, you know, if we have 27, 28 kids, it's hard to split them up and then have them do some kind of work outside other than one of those walkabout things. Alternative teaching is where the gen ed teacher does a lesson and then I would take a group of students out into the hallway or somewhere and either do a reteach with them or just do anything with them that we think might help give them some of that scaffolding that they need for the lesson, but I also still have to give them part of what they're missing in class with her because she's still going to be doing the whole entire lesson. They still got to get it. So it'll just be me giving more support and doing it in with a smaller number of students. Then parallel teaching, both of us teaching at exactly the same time but in two different locations. So it's one of those things again. We're teaching the exact same lesson. I'm just doing mine with more differentiated instruction and then she's doing hers for the gen ed students. And what we've noticed, some of our CT and SF kids, they fit right along with their gen ed as far as the way that like their scores on tests, all that stuff. So it's not just going to be a split of gen ed, special ed. It's really going to be who needs the certain skill depending on what we're working on. Okay. So this was interesting to me. I'm almost done. This was in the very back of the magazine. It's kind of the takeaways, and it's the 7 tenets for teaching together. What I like about it is that you can give it to a group of teachers and say, which one of these do you identify with? Which one of these do you want to know more about? And then based on that, it's different articles. So I was going to ask you guys to read through it and pick a number, and then I'll tell you which article each number goes with. So I'll give you a second. So does everyone have their number? Some people have the same number, I'm noticing. You guys ready? Okay. So these are the articles that go with each number. So I saw several people had 4. And that's actually the one about student teaching. So it doesn't mean that it's not valid for what we have going on here, because I found tons and tons of things in these articles that I was like, ooh, maybe we should try that. Could this be effective in our classroom? And like I said, they talk about co-teaching with ELLs. They have lots and lots of different options for co-teaching that have been seen throughout the country. To clone or not to clone was my favorite, and that was the one that I printed out. You can just look at the very back page. The reason I liked it is because it starts communication at the, flip it over on the back. It starts communication at the beginning of the year so that the teachers kind of know this is what we're going to do. And I like that it has, gen ed, special ed, what are we going to do together, or what, doesn't have to be done. And we could change this up as much as we wanted to, to fit specifically to our school and our culture, but I just liked it because it's something. So Ellen, when I came in before the school year ended, because we knew we'd be co-teaching together, she asked me questions about, do you want to use instructional notebooks? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I'd be like, okay, well, I don't want to change everything. So what worked well for you? What didn't work well for you? But we did that at the beginning of the school year. And then even we kind of have, our routines that we go through. I usually do homework checks and warm-ups. She usually starts the instruction, and then I come back and do application. But we can't say that anymore now because we're trying out all these different things. So all of these different things, they're going to give you views from instructional coaches, from students, from teachers, from administrators, all of these different ones. So if you picked number 7, it was actually the administrator's guide. Did anybody pick number 7? I'll get down to number 7.
It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah, I know. And even saying what you mean without being mean, that's an issue with a lot of people. So I liked that article a lot, but I haven't even read through all of them, but Co-Teaching 2.0, it goes through all of the history of why we do co-teaching, all of those kind of things. On top of those articles, these were just some other ones that I really enjoyed reading, especially the revisiting classroom routines. That's where I got the idea about let's really split the kids up. If we're spending our homework checks are not effective because 3 people are turning the homework in and those 3 people are listening. The other ones are just whatever, I don't have my homework, so I'm not going to listen. So we've kind of taken it out. We're doing more homework quizzes because if you're saying you don't need to do the homework because you know everything, then just show us, that you know the information. So we're just kind of revamping the routine, and we're used to the routine, we like the routine, but we just know it's not the best thing for our kids. Another thing is if you do the same routine, you may not be hitting all of your kids. So us doing the different stations, us doing these different things, we're actually helping different learners who like to learn a different way. If you stick to one routine all the time, it's just, you're not going to hit everybody. So that was that whole thing with the clear example. I can't give you a clear example because it's going to work really well for these kids, but it might not work really well for these kids. Okay. So now these are the questions I'm going to ask you guys. All right. So if we identify strategies not working, do we make changes throughout the school year?
Yes.
Yes.
How do we know it's not working?
Benchmarks, checkpoints,
What we observe in
feedback,
classrooms.
kids just telling us.
Okay.
Or teachers having
Yeah.
to meet with
Right.
co-teaching pairs that are not working well.
Right.
And those kind of changes, we can't make staff changes mid-year, but we can change procedure and then tweak for next year if necessary.
Okay.
And even that FR question that I got about procedures in SPED,
Right.
that's something that we can address now.
Okay.
Because now I know it's an issue.
Mm-hmm. Next one. Do you feel as though there are enough resources for professional development and the strategies are in the campus improvement plan? So we're talking about funding and also people.
I think the only resource we don't have enough of is time. Really, just to be able to really pull SPED teachers, the co-teachers and their partners, to really work together and give them that opportunity. And we know that there's some pairings that aren't even a pure pair, like you are with Ellen the whole time, but others move from person to person and don't even do the same subject. So it's limiting to what we can do with those. But that's the only, I think we have everything else in place. It's just a matter of training and finding those good pairs. That seems to be, for me, the most important thing at first, getting a good partnership, and then letting them run with it.
And although this doesn't have to do with professional development, the SFCT gap is huge, like the difference between SF and CT. So like it's like training those SF people. I feel like there's,
Different.
yeah, very,
And like I have an SF class, which I do like a co-teach class. What's interesting to me though is that I can't tell a difference between my SF kids and my CT kids at all. Like actually the ability level I don't get to see in my SF kids more because they don't do work. They're the ones who give up very easily before we even try. So it's interesting to me that, you know, we have the clear definition of this is an SF and this is a CT, but I know if they had a different type of teacher in there, like the only 45 minutes, I'm not sure how much.
not much success.
Yeah, I don't see how they would have success. Yeah. Do you have any other suggestions for professional development or comments on the development that I recommended?
I think you nailed it as far as an area of growth for us and something that would be something specifically important to you as well.
I think these resources are good.
Mm-hmm.
Literally showed up in the mail and said, wow, how did they know? Okay. Was this presentation effective? Will it lead to any changes in further professional development?
Definitely.
I
Well,
think so.
I think that you hit upon something that we talk about almost every time we meet. What are we doing for our special population? What are we doing to help them? And it feels like sometimes it's still a discussion of this is the problem, what are we doing? And that's as far as we get.
Okay, great. Well, that's it for my presentation. Thank you. Hi, this is my post-reflection video for my participating video, which was done on the campus improvement plan and staff development plan. Some of the questions that we had after the presentation, one of the things was that I felt like the leadership team gave me pretty good answers on any questions that I had. The biggest thing I had was just trying to figure out how they know how they're doing. Are there any types of reports that they're looking at that everyone's updating to, or is it just one of those things where they use our campus and district checkpoints, and then after that kind of look and see if there's places that we need to make adjustments? And they said that for the most part that's what they're doing. I also talked about resources, if they felt like we had the funds that we needed, the people that we needed, and their biggest thing was time is always an issue. And then that really goes with the ongoing follow-up. There's always issues having enough time to get everything done and to make sure that things are as efficient as they want them to be. They said there's always room for improvement, so they're always looking for those as they go on. We also talked about suggestions concerning professional development. So I got really good feedback about the professional development that I recommended. I was also, told that it's definitely in an area that they feel we needed to address. It was put in the campus improvement plan that it was an area that we should pay more attention to and give more time and attention to for this year. And that didn't happen so far. So what I recommended was definitely something for them to look at and might be an option for next year. They really just talked about the fact that, it's not the same for every situation. So in my situation, I'm with the same teacher for all of my co-teach classes, but that's not the way it is for some of the other SPED teachers. They are switching around in the department, so sometimes some of the planning isn't as easy because you're not just doing it with one partner, you've got several partners throughout your day, and just some of those things that we kind of have to think about when we're talking about professional development for co-teachers. We're just not all in the same model and the same structure as far as our scheduling. And predicted outcomes. So their pretty much predicted outcome was that, yes, we do need to do something with our SPED department. Some other things that happened after the presentation, we talked about just the SPED department in general, having more streamlined ways to turn in things, having a real process in place on how we get feedback from teachers when we do our after progress reports and grade reports. We always go back to the teachers with our kids that are failing and kind of ask them what interventions have been used, what strategies have been used, but just everyone kind of having the same thing. So they feel like having professional development that deals specifically with our SPED teachers and our co-teachers will kind of help along with that. They do feel like what I gave them was very relevant and something that they could perceive using in the future. So as far as the presentation, what went well? I thought that the recommendation part of the presentation went really well. I felt like they were interested in what I gave them. They found something in it that they thought was valuable for them, because not everyone in their has SPED teachers that they're over, but they still found something that they could use across all curriculum and all teachers. So I thought that was important. I was a little bit worried about the fact that all of them have seen the campus improvement plan before. A lot of the things that I was reviewing with them were things that they knew as far as who was responsible, what kind of funds we have, and also just infrastructures that we have in place to get our strategies done for each objective. So I was a little bit worried about that. I'm not sure if I would change anything. I think that I could have tried to make it a little bit more interactive throughout. I did ask questions here and there, but maybe broken it up a little bit more to make it interactive. I know with our own professional developments, we try to teach teachers like we teach our students. So it shouldn't just be lecture. It should be, some type of activities. And I had one at the end where they got to kind of choose which subject that they wanted to have an article about. And, I'd stop here and ask a question here and there, but just something maybe to keep them more interested in the presentation. That's one thing I think I could have done better with. I was a little nervous about the whole presentation because I kind of took over their meeting, and they definitely had other topics. They have very, very busy schedules. So asking them if I could take another, 45 minutes to an hour of their time, I was kind of going into it hoping, that everything went well and that they actually gained something valuable from it. So through this experience, well, I definitely did not know that the campus improvement plan involved so many different parts. I didn't especially until I started this last class, which was ED LD 5333. So I got a lot of experience during this class, and then also while doing this video on reviewing the campus improvement plan, seeing the needs assessment for my campus, and then just seeing all the other parts. Because not only do we have the objectives that go towards our ultimate goal, we also have all of what we call our required objectives, which deal with topics like the crisis management plan, which deal with dealing with our homeless students, dealing with at-risk students, things like that. So it's very broad, and there's a lot of different parts to it. I can see why sometimes, like my biggest question about reporting, like how do we know if things are working? I can see how hard that is to keep up with, just as far as we've put these strategies in place, we've put funding towards these strategies, so now we need to make sure that we're actually getting the bang for our buck. And I can see how that can be difficult, especially with the limited time that admin has, and that's why you have to bring in other people to help. That's why we have the at-risk team, librarians and student success people. So it's really important to keep those people in the loop. Another thing I was just a little bit surprised about was that as a teacher, we know that we work on certain strategies every year, or we have, a battle cry every year, but we don't really understand that it's all coming back to this campus improvement plan. So for me, as I was reading it, I would think, oh, so that's why we're doing Talk Read, Talk Write this year, because that's one of our strategies. Or even the fact that we implemented PLCs last year. I didn't know that that was part of the CIP plan from last year. And then some of the things we're doing this year as far as going into each other's classrooms, seeing things that work in there, and then talking about those in common in our PLC meetings, and then actually going and using them in our own classrooms. Those are all things that were actually laid out within the campus improvement plan. However, I never would have known that if I didn't read it. So my principal definitely, when we chose this, she's my mentor. When we chose this for my practicum plan, I think I understand why she chose this one, and it kind of creates even buy-in for myself as far as some of these things that we do for reading and writing. Well, I'm a math teacher. I do special education. What does it have to do with me? But just seeing how it all ties in together and where we're really working on getting designations for next year and things like that. Like, it doesn't matter the curriculum, we can still tie reading and writing into our instruction. So that was kind of eye-opening for me. Our administrative team, they're very honest and open. They've been a lot of help throughout this whole thing, but actually getting in front of them and telling them like things to help them out and strategies that should help them, it put me in a different position because normally they're the one giving me the strategies, but as and I had to think as an administrator with these things. So it was different for me because normally I'm not presenting ideas to them. Usually they're presenting them to me and telling me, this is what we want to go towards, and things like that. So that was different, but I definitely enjoyed it and felt like I got feedback from it. A lot of them after the fact said, we were expecting just something boring and, we had to do it because we had to do it. And it turned into something that they all were able to get something out of. So I did appreciate that at the end. How will this experience transform my practice as an administrator? One big deal is I couldn't just come with ideas that I pulled out of my head. I definitely know that when you're when you're an administrator, you need to use research-based practices. So although we all have our goals that we come up with, our mission and vision, which should definitely be a collective decision. If you're going to present a certain way to do things, or if you're going to present a certain strategy, we need to know that it's research-based. It's something that has already been known to work, and not only to work, but work for certain populations of students. Like I said, I'm at a Title I school. Our low socioeconomic students are around 80% of our entire campus. So we have certain types of students that have certain needs. And it's just really important that when we're looking at strategies that can work, that we know that it's going to work for our population of students. And it's not just when it comes to instruction, it also has to deal with positive behavior, contracts, things like that. There's just lots of things that go into it. So as an administrator, you do lead more professional development. You do choose and pick the professional development that you'll be using. So it's really important for me to think about that when I bring ideas to administration. I just have to know that I'm looking at something that's been research-based, know that it's something that ties back into that campus improvement plan. What is it that we're looking for? And then also knowing that, if we have our campus needs assessment and it says that we need to work on our SPED students or we need to work on ELL, knowing that I'm choosing things that are going to help us go towards that ultimate goal. My school did very well. We had 5 distinctions last year, but of course we know that we're not done. And that's one of the things as teachers, we're like, whoo, we made it. So that's good. But I know that it's one of those things where we have to keep building every year. We have to keep getting better and better and look at the things that we've been doing and just say, how can we tweak this to make it a little better for next year? How can we make this more efficient for all of our students? If we only started with a certain department, how are we going to keep this moving forward with all of the departments? So overall, it was a very good experience. I think I learned a lot from it, and I was appreciative from the feedback that I got from our leadership team. Everything really just helped me out as far as becoming an administrator and just seeing, the things that I have to put together, the amount of work it takes just to make one presentation. All of that was very beneficial to me. Thank you for your time.